All the Difference is the teaching ministry of Dr. Wayne Broderick, the lead pastor at Frisco Bible Church. In the Bible Place series, we seek to uncover the significance of the times and locations of biblical events to help you understand and engage with the scriptures. Welcome to episode 5 of the Bible Place series. If this podcast has been a blessing to you, we'd be honored if you would subscribe, give a rating, review, and share it with your friends. And if it's been an encouragement to you, if you'd like to support All the Difference and help us make even more helpful content, we've included a link in the show notes to support the show and to give to All the Difference. So if you want to do that, that would be great. If not, that's totally cool too. We're going to keep doing as much as we can possibly do.
And we are blessed by those who do. You are a blessing. Thank you.
Huge blessing. Today's episode, we are going to travel to Bethesda and explore the background culture of life in the biblical era. So here we go. Wayne, let's go to Bethesda.
Let's go to Bethesda. John chapter 5 is where we are, if you've got a Bible handy. After this, a Jewish festival took place, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. By the sheep gate in Jerusalem, there is a pool called Bethesda in Aramaic, which has 5 colonnades. That means it has 5 walkways. So that's a shorthand way to tell you a lot about the place. It's large. There's 5 different walkways, which usually means it's 2 different sections, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then one across the middle in the middle.
I think that's really helpful because I know in my mind when I hear colonnade, I think pillar.
Yeah, right. Because when we go to ruined places, that's all that's left.
Yeah.
But it actually means a whole arch, and the series colonnade means we still use the word promenade for something you walk down. So, all right, within that, there lay a large number of the disabled, blind, lame, and paralyzed. One man was there who had been disabled for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and realized he had already been there a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to get well?" Jared can take it from there.
Certainly. Sir, the disabled man answered, "I have no one to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up. But while I'm coming, someone goes down ahead of me." "Get up," Jesus told him. "Pick up your mat and walk." Instantly the man got well, picked up his mat, and started to walk. Now that day was the Sabbath. So the Jews said to the man who had been healed, "This is the Sabbath. The law prohibits you from picking up your mat." He replied, "The man who made me well told me, pick up your mat and walk." "Who is this man who told you, pick up your mat and walk?" they asked. But the man who was healed did not know who it was, because Jesus had slipped away into the crowd that was there. After this, Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, "See, you are well. Do not sit anymore, so that something worse doesn't happen to you." The man went and reported to the Jews that it was Jesus who had made him well. Therefore, the Jews began persecuting Jesus because he was doing these things on the Sabbath. All right, so let's begin with the location, the geography of the spot. Where is the Pool of Bethesda?
Bethesda is on the north end of the city of Jerusalem. So if you think of Jerusalem kind of like my hand here, because it tapers toward the southern end of the city, and way down here is a spring pool called the Pool of Siloam. We think we know where it is. They keep uncovering other parts. It may have been a whole complex of pools. It's very fascinating. But up at the northern end of the city, just outside of the old city wall, was Bethesda. It wasn't called Bethesda originally. It was just called the pool. It's a relatively high spot, like even as high as the Temple Mount, before Herod finished off all of his work there. And it did a similar function to what the Pool of Siloam did at the southern end. People did their laundry there. Sheep were dipped there, which is why by the 1st century, in the gates that were redone after the different conquests, they called it the sheep gate there, because so many people brought sheep in from being cleansed there to go into the temple, which was just a short way down the road. Those of you that have been there, actually, this is where usually visiting the spot helps you so much with location. It hurts in this case because the walls that are there now are only about 600 years old. And those were built by Suleiman the Magnificent, which may be the best grandparent name of all time. I mean, I assume that's why he's called it. No, a remarkable Muslim builder and conqueror, and Suleiman built the walls there. So if you could wipe that from your head a little bit, and just think of more. If you've been to the Church of St. Anne, I know a number of people are. There's some little archways. They're not old, but they're older than my country, but they're not old.
In terms of the scope of history, what
Right.
we're talking about, they're not that old.
They're not that old. But if you'll think of those gates that you kind of walked through as you went up into the St. Anne's courtyard, that's pretty much where the wall of the city would have been. That's where the sheep gate would have been. And then you walked to Bethesda from there. It was called the Launderer's Field, that area that you're standing on, because everybody did their laundry at the pool. Spring-fed water, nice and clean, healthy, flowed, had a very nice irrigation system. So that's the location. Locale. Remember, locale is the government, the system. So location is where is it? Locale is what was it? What was built up around it? So Bethesda is part of the government structure of the city of Jerusalem. So under the United Kingdom, under Saul and David and Solomon, it was part of the kingdom and a well-known, well-visited place. When the northern tribes broke away, Bethesda ended up kind of on a frontier spot, because Jerusalem's very close to the northern edge of Judah. So the northern tribes are beyond it, and Bethesda is kind of a frontier spot that doesn't seem to have impacted it. As far as we can tell, it was still used all the time during the Judean monarchy. Later, 500 years later, when Babylon conquers, they, of course, destroyed the whole city, especially on the third time they had to come because the Israelites wouldn't listen to God. That's a story for another day. The Babylonians did not destroy Bethesda. The Scythian Medes who took over after that, and then the Persians who took over, I know they kind of blended into each other. They didn't destroy Bethesda. The Greeks didn't destroy Bethesda when Alexander the Great conquered the area. The Romans did not. This is intriguing. Everybody saw this as a useful place. And so they kept it intact. There were improvements that were made. And now this is where going to the spot can help. When you go down into the bottom there, you'll see reservoirs and waterways that are not 2,000 years old. They're only, from the original time Bethesda, they're 1,000 years old, and you can tell they're Roman. Romans built with very nice, very fancy materials, and the engineering was good. And the water flow, the way they could, Jared, tell people real quickly. So, like, if they go up to Caesarea, not where we are, but just another example, how precise is the aqueduct in terms of the Roman engineering taking water? What is it like?
Oh, it's amazing because the archways are all the same. They're the same size. You can walk from one archway to the other. They're exactly the same size. The descent is sloped precisely.
Yeah.
And it had to be because you can't get water pooling up. You can't get water standing still. It just has to transport water. And so you take a bubble level and put it on there. It's going to be the same all along,
All the
very,
way.
very close.
Right, yeah. 2,000 years. We'll give them a little room for shifting and earthquakes, but yeah.
For sure. And it is one of those things that as you look at it, you marvel
Yeah.
at the engineering from thousands of years ago.
For something to go an inch lower over a mile,
Yeah.
every single mile, so that the water just continues. So that's what you see at Bethesda. It's very crafty, precise kind of water engineering, which is going to come into the sluice gates and things that cause the water to flow in. Under the last two administrations of the site, the Greeks and then the Romans, it became, this is really weird, it became a cult site for the god Asclepius, the god of healing. There was a very large pool added, which is probably 3 of the porticos were around the large pool that was added, and there was a water tunnel that, on the priest's command, the Asclepius priest would say, "Now's good," and they would raise and that would cause water to flow in. It would swirl up. You've let water out of your bathtub, right? It just swirls up, and it would come through and then flow into this area. That may help explain the name. in Aramaic, which was the common tongue spoken in Jerusalem at that time, it was called Bethesda. Bethesda, which was a compound word. It's hard to tell in Aramaic because Aramaic borrowed, actually, it's a little bit like English, not nearly, but it borrowed from lots of other languages all the time. And in Aramaic, they borrowed from Hebrew. Bait in Hebrew means house, like Bethlehem, house of bread or house of life. When you see bait, though, there is a part that the English speakers tend to leave out. It means a house under the authority of the house father. So in Roman, they would put it as the paterfamilias. There is somebody who is in charge here. So it's not just a house, it's a house with a pater. In this case, Asclepius, right. And to that was added hesed. Hesed is loving kindness in a covenant allegiance. Hesed is a love that can't and won't be broken. So Bethesda probably means the house where there's a covenant that won't be broken. If so, that's really fascinating foreshadowing for the covenants that we're going to get into that have to do with the sense of place. But first, before we get to that,
Yeah.
okay, all right,
We're blessed to be able to do that actually through all the difference. It is
yeah,
an all the difference trip.
that's right.
So anybody is welcome to come. I've already had multiple conversations with people. Jeremy has had multiple conversations. People are excited. It's going to be a lot of fun.
That's
We get to
great.
go see this place.
You
And
it,
and
it
then go next door to St. Anne's and
and
have
sing.
everybody sing a song. And it doesn't matter if you can sing well or not. It sounds amazing.
You sound great. It's like the world's biggest shower. It's amazing. You sound so good.
Awesome. It's super cool.
So one last thing about the locale I just want to mention is that this isn't the only place in the world where there was that kind of water structure. And when we get to sense of place and we talk about how it lived, Jared's going to refer to a really cool place called Pergamum in Turkey where we've been that has a similar. It was the original. This was actually a copy of the one in Turkey, so that will help us. So let's get to sense of place. All right.
Sounds good.
Most of our time today is going to be on sense of place because this miracle occurs on this place on purpose. Bethesda, the Sheepgate Pool, it has a very unique sense of place. This is very important. In fact, this place is so significant that over the centuries, square foot by square foot, more churches have been built on this site than any other place I know of outside of one site in Rome that I know. And in fact, Ryan's going to throw up an image on your screen. We'll just keep talking, but I've highlighted 3 of the 5 churches that are there. There's one you can't see in that picture, and then on the far right of the picture, you can see the white building. That's the modern St. Anne's that we talked about. All right. Originally, this place was a place of a sign. A sign was promised regarding the Messiah. Okay, stories in Isaiah 7, if you want to go there in your Bible. And let me set up the scene. Judah's being attacked by the king of Israel. Remember how I talked about the divided kingdom? So this is right on the edge of Judah. That's what they call the southern tribes when they split, and the northern tribe kept the name of Israel. So the king of Israel has allied himself with Syria, with whom he doesn't agree on much except their own idolatry. Really not nice guys. These were not happy people. And they have only agreed on one thing. They want to smash the Jews. They want to kill Judah. They sent a secret attack force through the nation of Israel. Was actually quite impressive. Sneak attacks rarely work. That you study them in books and things because when they do work, it's so fascinating. But then you those of you that are military can comment on this, but you try them in real life and they don't usually work. Coordination is just too difficult. This one worked. This one, literally, one morning, people in the Judean capital go out to do their laundry, take their sheep, whatever. They go out and and just beyond the sheep gate and beyond the pool of what was later called Bethesda, there's an army, and they are camped outside. Everybody, of course, goes to get the king, get the king. The king's a guy named Ahaz, and God says, Isaiah, go out there and comfort Ahaz. So Isaiah goes, and he stands with Ahaz, and they're probably standing together. That's a lot of people. That's not good. Ahaz panicking. So he's there to comfort him, and he says, God says to Isaiah, offer him a sign, and it's a doozy. Okay, Jared's going to read part of the text. Is that cool?
Yeah.
All right. Isaiah 7.
Isaiah 7, starting in verse 3. The Lord said to Isaiah, go out with your son, Shear Jashub. Did I say that right?
I think so, yeah.
Close enough.
Yeah.
Go out with him and to meet Ahaz at the end of the conduit of the upper pool, by the road to the launderer's field. Say to him, calm down and be quiet. And then jumping ahead to verse 9, if you do not stand firm in your faith, then you will not stand at all. Then the Lord spoke again to Ahaz, ask for a sign from the Lord your God. It can be as deep as Sheol or as high as heaven.
Now, what the Iron Age Jerusalem called the upper pool by the road to the laundry field, I think was how you put it, that's the same pool that is called Bethesda by the sheep gate in John 5 that we're studying today. So standing there, Isaiah speaks for God, who in verse 11 offers what literary people call a merism. A merism is where you give two far extremes that include everything in between. So God offers Ahaz anything from the center of life that is heaven all the way to Sheol, the place of the dead. This is a huge swath of possibilities. Before you ask, no, God does not always offer signs. But when the Lord is dealing with particularly faithless or scared persons, sometimes he offers a sign to them. We see it in the scripture. It's a confirmation that he is doing what he said he was doing, or what he said he would be doing. The Gospel of John is filled with this concept. The whole book of John is arranged around a series of 7 signs that prove that Jesus is Emmanuel. He is the promised Messiah, God with us. Jared actually memorized all 7 of the signs in John. Let's hear them. What are they?
Jesus turned water into wine. He healed the official's son. The healing at Bethesda, which we're talking about right now. Feeding of the 5,000 when he walked on water, restored sight to a blind man, and then one of my personal favorites, raising Lazarus. That was the final sign in John.
Very good. All right, so back to Isaiah, right? 500 years before John, God offers Ahaz this chance to admit he's freaked out, he's scared out of his mind, and receive assurance that God is going to do what Isaiah promised. Yahweh will protect Judah. He's going to break these. We didn't have time to read all that. He's going to break these 2 countries, and Ahaz can be comforted by the truth of that sign. In response, do you remember what Ahaz says?
He declines, which is so nuts. It's crazy. God gives you the option to ask for any sign you can think of. This is one of the few places in the Bible where God does. It's almost genie-like.
Right.
Like,
yep.
Just throw it out there. I'll do it. And Ahaz is like, no, I don't think so.
And it sounds so noble.
It does.
Because he's like, if I remember the Hebrew right, he says, I wouldn't presume. And it sounds like, oh, wow. Man, wish Gideon had been like that. Wish others, way to go. Except it is a huge, fat lie from the pit of hell. From the very first moments of this fool's reign, he has tested God in every single way. Here's the perfect example. At the very moment that Isaiah is meeting with Ahaz to offer God's divine assistance, Ahaz had already sent a messenger to the king of Assyria. So you've got Syria, you've got Israel, and they're both attacking Judah down here, right? Well, Assyria is the big nasty place up above both of those, north of those countries, that has been in inner turmoil for a little while. So they haven't been doing their what has been a couple 100-year reign of growth and terror. He sends a note to them. Do you have that one? Do you want to read 2 Kings 16? Okay, listen to this. Ahaz, I wouldn't presume. At that moment, he had already sent a messenger with this info. Go ahead.
Ahaz sent messengers to Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, saying, I am your servant and your son. Come up and rescue me from the hand of the king of Syria and from the hand of the king of Israel who are attacking me. Ahaz also took the silver and gold that was found in the house of the Lord and in the treasures of the king's house and sent a present to the king of Assyria.
What a numbskull. I mean, he's got a chance to receive help from God Almighty. He would rather trust the bloodthirsty Assyrians instead, and he pays them off with sacred worship implements from the temple. This lying wretch is not asking for a sign because he's noble. He's not asking for a sign because he thinks he has something better than God. You see, he's got Assyria. And he's going to develop and trust in that relationship with Assyria, not in the relationship with God. That's the real reason he refuses the author. In response to Ahaz, the double-dealing jerk, God promises future judgment and, as he always does, ultimate salvation. He chooses this time, this place, at this spot, this field, this pool, to make maybe the greatest prophecy ever about the Messiah. Here's the pith of his prediction. Therefore, Isaiah 7:14, therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. I couldn't ask for a sign. All right, I'll give you one. See, the virgin will conceive and have a son and name him Emmanuel. All that occurred right here at Bethesda. That's the sense of place when we get to John 5, which by the time of John 5 was called Bethesda, not the sheep pool anymore. You can't help. Everybody knows this is the exact spot where Emmanuel was promised. This is a place that cries out for total reliance on God in the person of Messiah, Emmanuel, Jesus. And there's more. There's a second aspect to the sense of place, very important. Astonishing deliverance story. 2 Kings 18 and 19 tell the story. If you have time, if you're where you can, you might want to pause the podcast and read this on your own. Jared's gonna set it up for us. Here's the background for the second big sense of place idea.
Yeah, it comes from 2 Kings 18, starting in verse 17. The king of Assyria sent the field marshal, the chief of staff as royal spokesman, along with a massive army. So this is not the small force, secretive force again.
No.
This is overwhelmingly massive army from Lachish to King Hezekiah at Jerusalem. They advanced and came to Jerusalem. They took their position by the aqueduct of the upper pool, by the road to the launderer's field. Then, verse 28, the royal spokesman stood and called out loudly in Hebrew, hear the word of the great king, the king of Assyria. This is what the king says. Don't let Hezekiah deceive you. He can't rescue you from my power. Jumping ahead to 32, don't listen to Hezekiah when he misleads you, saying the Lord will rescue us. Who among all the gods of the lands has rescued his land from my power? So will the Lord rescue Jerusalem from my power? But the people kept silent. They did not answer him at all, for the king's command was, don't answer him.
Okay, so we had the confrontation with the quick-moving, smaller army from Syria and Israel. God rescued them.
Yeah.
The way he rescued them was Assyria. And Assyria came blitzing through and kind of crippled those two countries. Then Assyria got some of their internal strife taken care of, and a guy named Sennacherib came to the throne, and he ended up embarking on a pretty ambitious empire-building scheme. He totally conquered Syria and Israel. That's the end of Israel. They don't exist after that. takes them back. They absorb. They were so full of idolatry anyway. They were just kind of taking it home into the Assyrian life. And he's already begun to attack parts of Judah. The city of Lachish that was in the text is a massive city that we've been to, and it was a long siege there. If you want to learn about that, sometime, if you can ever get to London, go to the British Museum. The reliefs from Sennacherib's palace, thank God, were taken to London a couple hundred years ago, or else they'd have been smashed in all the wars there now. But it shows in detail, gruesome detail, how they took the city of Lachish. So now they've come over,
and you can actually see it online. Like, you can go to the British
there you go.
website. You can. It's better to see these in person always.
Right, sure. But
and if you go to London, you got to go see it because it's amazing.
And it's free.
I was actually just on the website the other day.
Were you really?
And you can zoom in on these reliefs, and you can see them in the incredible, gruesome detail. Guys on spikes.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
The things that the Assyrians used to do to people.
The cages with the burning coals around their heads, eating their head. It's awful. Yeah, they were
really, really inventive and creative.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
It's as gentle as I can be.
Yeah, that's kind of like those. If you've ever been a camp counselor and you do the character qualities for your cabin at the end of the week, and you've got a kid who's just a torturer of everyone else. You say, he is so creative. That's right. Anyway, sorry. That's
if I had to say one good thing, it would be that
it's creative. So what you expect at this point is this is even more. So remember, Ahaz freaking out, right? God says, calm down. If you don't stand and trust in the Lord, you're not going to stand for anything, which I think later was a country and Western hit song. But so his son Hezekiah is now king. Ahaz was a loser. Hezekiah is one of the really good dudes ever. He has flaws, but he's one of the really good men ever to serve anywhere. And the whole city kind of takes his cue from him, because this is a massive force, tens of thousands of people that, you've got all the reports. They were putting people on stakes in Lachish. Now they've come here, and here's their spokesman who's saying, don't let Hezekiah deceive you. He won't save you. The Lord's not going to rescue you. And all this took place where? At the same Bethesda. Same spot. So the first big promise, Messiah will come here. Once again, enemies are here, right by those aqueducts that fed the upper pool. And this time, Hesed, the place of faithfulness and covenant trust. Remember, loving kindness can't be... You see it in the people's silence. Did you hear what Jared read? They didn't say anything. Under Hezekiah, in a much worse situation, it's the opposite of the seas under Ahaz. They are now at rest in the Lord. They are trusting God. That probably, I think, is what led to the place being called Bethesda at some point after this, because they showed covenant love there, and God showed covenant love to them. In fact, he destroyed the entire Assyrian army. Destroyed them. Sennacherib underwent such damage. He limped home with a very small retinue in disgrace. The Assyrian terror is stopped for a long, long time. And if you don't know the story, read 2 Kings 18:19. The Lord literally wipes the entire Assyrian army off the map. Sennacherib goes back home and things don't go well for him, because when you're creative like he was, it's like any bully. Once you take a loss, you've lost face.
Yeah, he set that stage up for himself in all of his manipulations and mechanizations, and then when he came back having lost, his enemies saw the opening.
That's right. It's a little bit like in the time period that we've lived in. Saddam Hussein was considered terrifying, 1 million-man army, the only one in the world, and just gets destroyed in no time and is found hiding in a hole.
Yeah.
That's Sennacherib in this situation. All right, Jared's going to summarize sense of place, John 5. Anybody walking in northern Jerusalem in the first century, anybody would have known these things. What were they?
This is a place given where a sign was given regarding the Messiah.
Yep.
They would have had that in mind. Also, in the back of their mind, This is where that astonishing deliverance occurred. It's a story they would have heard growing up from their family. It was story time around the fire. They would have heard it. It's also a place of crony idolatry from the Greeks and the Romans in the first century BC. So all of this is going on in the back of their minds when Jesus shows up.
So let's talk about the third one then, crony idolatry.
All right.
That's an interesting phrase.
Yeah, we have.
Here's why we call it that. When the Greek rulers took over Israel, they built this massive, we told you, temple to Asclepius. The god Asclepius was honored in a complex of buildings that brought massive income to the city of Jerusalem. Okay. Reformed Wiki put together, I think, a really nice recreation of the place. I've walked there a few times. I think Ryan's going to show it to you right now. And I think it does a pretty good job of rebuilding what it would have looked like from a particular perspective. All right, now here's how Asclepian version of holistic medicine worked. The key thing was you had to learn special secrets from the gods, and it took money to learn those.
Shocking.
Yeah. So think Scientology, actually.
Okay.
And that's the core of the worship. Now, I don't know if this is part of Scientology. I don't know, Tom Cruise, I haven't got to ask. But that journey of learning was assisted by hallucinogenic drugs. If you learned well, then you were given the chance to take the drugs and go through this particular ceremony, and you were healed, or at least you believed you were for a time. The photo that you're looking at shows the most important part of this hospital. Ryan's thrown up another shot. So when the priest gave the signal, we talked about how there was a sluice gate and the water from the upper pool flowed through and the water was moved. And if you had learned enough and you had paid enough, you got to take the special drugs and you got to walk in. And only a certain number of people were allowed to walk in at a time. And you walked through this tunnel, if you see the tunnel on the picture. So if you're the first one across, you take the heavy drugs, you go into that table, the water swirls up to around your hips. Okay. And then as you swish through this tunnel, if you'll see the little holes in the wall at the top there, there's a hole. That's where the priest was on the other side. And his job was to say, "You feel better. You are healed. You have never felt so good." It's the same principle as fake faith healers today. At the end, you're basically hypnotized into believing that the God has healed you. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But if anyone dared to expose that this Bethesda Asclepion was a sham, they were going to risk the wrath of the authorities who valued all of the taxable income. It would be as if, and I'm happy this isn't the case, but if one of the fake faith healers of our time, somebody like Benny Hinn, who is I'm not trying to throw stones away, he's a false prophet. He is not scriptural at all. If Benny Hinn were giving 15% of all of his massive income, I mean, the man owns 2 jets, if he were giving 15% of that to the local government where he was working, not the federal government, the IRS, that would be a little more like what this place meant for the city of Jerusalem. So the Jewish leaders in the Sanhedrin are shockingly hypocritical. The council, the Sanhedrin that Nicodemus we met earlier in John was on, they were set aside. Their job was to oversee religion in Israel and especially in the city of Jerusalem. They were to keep all of life in line with Moses' law. But they allow this creepy nonsense to occur. And the only reason we can find is they wanted the tax revenue. They wanted the business. Only a few people go through at a time. What do all those other people do who come there for healing? They have to stay somewhere. They have to buy hotel rooms. They have to, it's a big money deal.
This hasn't changed. Like, you think about how much income comes to a city when a sports team moves, a
Right.
professional sports team moves to a city, or there's a new one. You build this super expensive, $1.5 billion
Right.
stadium. How much money is it expected to bring in over the course
Right.
of the season, of the life of the stadium, whatever it might be, the Las
Right.
Vegas or whatever, at the hotels, at the restaurants?
Yep.
they use that as a measurement. So any threat to that is a threat not just to like a little organization. It is a threat
Hmm.
to a massive, huge conglomerate of
Yep.
people that are depending on this for their income and influence and power and authority.
Yep.
That's huge.
That's right. So tell us about one of your favorite spots in the world is Pergamum. I said we were going to talk about this. Um, Pergamum's up on top of the hill. Down below
Yep.
is the original, as far as we can tell, the original big Asclepion.
Yeah.
Um, the first cult of Asclepius appears to be further west of that on the coast, but of Turkey. But the first big building is there. So tell us what it's like and what impressions you had from your time
Sure.
there.
It's called the Asclepius of Pergamum, and it's you walk in and it's big, it's wide, it's not narrow.
Mm.
There are gates and there are things underground, there are tunnels and
Yep.
places you can go, but there are huge walls around it. It was a big medical facility, and
Mhm.
people would come there and they would come for the healing. It was known as a place of healing. But one of the interesting things that we found out on one of the trips that I was on, the guy who was teaching explained this. He pointed to a disc that was on the ground. He said this was their entrance, not fee. The fee would be money.
Right.
This was their proof that they could be admitted.
I got a golden ticket.
Yeah, exactly. The
Yep.
golden ticket. The golden
Yep.
ticket was this gigantic stone disc that they would be given, and they had to carry it around the courtyard. Think of like a track,
Right.
400 meters or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not our measurement, it was theirs, but they had a certain course that people would have to walk. And if they could do it, then they would be admitted
That's
and they
right.
could receive medical attention. If they couldn't, they would be denied entry and they would go and probably die from whatever they were
Hmm.
suffering from. But
Hmm.
it's interesting because they would not treat people who were too sick.
Right.
Because if they treated people who were too sick and the person didn't get well, it would hurt their reputation and then people would stop coming to them for
That's
healing.
right. Yep.
And
Got to
it's
keep those
very
numbers up.
similar.
And thankfully, it is not so cutthroat because we have different influences, not just Greek holistic medicine, but a few of our friends have been on uh, on commissions for hospital accreditation in America, and actually that does come up in some of those conversations. Ooh, are we admitting too many really sick patients because it's making it look like we have a less heal rate? They don't kick them out. But you understand their problem.
Yeah.
And now above that is this looming huge city of Pergamum, which is absolutely beautiful, with the steepest theater I've ever been in my life.
I think it's the steepest theater in antiquity.
Is it? Okay.
I think it is.
But
I haven't been to one that's steeper.
I
And it's carved right into
right
the
in the
hills.
side of the hill. So it kind of connects the Asclepius area with the city proper, and it's a big theater. So this is a big, big city, and a lot of its money. Now, Pergamum existed before they built the temple there, um, but it obviously got quite wealthy in the Greco-Roman era, from the Roman era especially, got quite wealthy from the worship of Asclepius. Okay, so
it's also one of the most pagan cities in all of the Roman territories. I can't remember the exact number. I think it's 14 discovered temples.
Yeah.
Something like that. We can fact check
that we know of,
later.
yes.
But tons of temples.
Uh-huh.
A letter in Revelation, one of the letters was written to Pergamum.
Right.
And
So we know there were believers there.
Jesus says this is the throne of Satan.
Yeah.
Like where he sits.
Yep.
It is a big, huge, terribly pagan site.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
and the Asclepius is right at the base of this, where everybody was supposedly receiving all this healing.
Yeah. And they're not. Buy eye salve from me. Anyway, that's crony idolatry. It is idolatry in partnership with people who shouldn't be in partnership with that, but they're in it because they like the money. They want to run the business, and running businesses can be healthy and godly, but they want to run it for that. Thank goodness that never happens in our day.
Of course it doesn't. Wink.
Yeah. So here's a story. A few years ago, I got drafted to be the one. The city that we live in, there was a big debate. there were a number of people, many, many people, funded by as many dollars almost as Sennacherib had soldiers, many hundreds of that. Actually, we had more than that even, that were funded by alcohol companies to expand alcohol access in our city. There's plenty of alcohol available here, but it was to make it available for over-the-counter sale after 1 a.m. The problem with that is that the way laws work in the part of the world where we live, that allows a change in the enforcement of laws and would have allowed for sexually oriented businesses and the exploitation of women. And what happened was a few Christian leaders. These are people who claim to be our brethren and probably are, and we praise God for that. We're speaking on behalf of this vote. And so in a debate before the city council, I got chosen by the other side to go debate. And so I laid out my thesis: expanding booze access is the opposite of biblical health. The Christian, the pastor who was on the side, agreed with me. He said, you're right. I said, this opens the door to objectifying women, sexual business. There's nothing healthy in that. And he agreed. And I just sat there and thought, he agreed? And he said, this was his summary: that kind of bad stuff's going to happen anyway. And since it's going to happen anyway, we might as well be able to tax it and get revenue out of it for the city. Now, our side won that election, which was shocking because we had very little money and yet we won it, which is great. Praise God we won that, and we won it decisively, so it's never come up again. But I listened in that debate, and when that guy was saying, well, at least we should tax it and get the money, I had this weird feeling, this must be what it was like to be Nicodemus or some halfway wise person who was on the Sanhedrin when they decided to let an Asclepius be built there. What does that have to do with Jerusalem? These are the people protecting Moses' law, but wink, wink, nod, nod, we're going to let this go because of the money. All right, so that's the place, all right? When you get to Bethesda, it's not just, oh yeah, it was a place with water. It's a place, when you get to John 5 and the sign of the Messiah here, you study this passage, you got to keep in mind what Jesus is going to do. And that's not our task here. You can read it. We're just trying to give you the place background. What Jesus is going to do is based on these things: a promise about Messiah, an astonishing deliverance, and crony idolatry. So what are you going to see Jesus do? He's going to prove he's the Messiah here at Bethesda. He's going to provide an astonishing deliverance, and he is going to blast hypocrisy and crony idolatry. Jesus is everything the location of John 5 brings to mind: Messiah, miraculous deliverer, destroyer of idolatry. And that true story, as we were thinking on this, it simulated some questions that we thought maybe you should ponder. We pondered. Jared's got the first one for us.
I think, too, that all of that is a threat to the way things were.
Oh, yeah.
And so as Jesus shows up and he tells the man, pick up your mat and walk, it's a threat to their finances. It's a threat to the taxation, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
It's also a threat to the authority of the Pharisees, who are saying, these are the rules, you must follow them. You're breaking the Sabbath. He's threatening that.
And what did they not ask? Who made you well? They don't care that he's well.
Yeah.
They care that he's breaking the law, even though they have broken the law. And actually, he's not breaking the law because that's not what Moses' law says.
Jesus was an invalid for 38 years, which is
and it is
amazingly long time. And all of a sudden, in one day, he just gets up and he rolls up his mat and he walks. And like that, to me, you see that's celebration time.
You bet. You bet.
I hope that if I had been there, that would have been my response. I don't know if it would have been or not.
Yeah.
I hope that would be the case, instead of focusing on nitpicking these little tiny things and celebrating Jesus instead of being threatened by him.
I hope I would have also said, wow, that's interesting. 38 years is how long Israel wandered in the wilderness because they refused to trust and they wouldn't live according to the law. You guys pretend to live according to the law, but you're actually living to your own rules, not the real law. And 38 years. I would have hoped I would have seen it. I don't know if I would have,
Yeah.
but that's the advantage of getting to read it later. We can see those kind of things.
Well, and to the physical aspect of it, I've run races where my muscles were exhausted, and the next day I couldn't get up
Yeah,
and move functionally well because
yeah.
the race was so long. This guy hadn't walked in 38 years, and all of a sudden he's standing up. I mean, I
Just
had
ask
ankle
any,
surgery,
ask,
and
yeah.
after recovery, I had no calf muscle on that leg.
And you had to
It
learn to
took
walk
I
again.
had to really I had to learn to walk, to run, to like it took a long time to get a muscle to just come back to
Yeah.
life. This guy went from being an invalid for 38 years to walking around like a normal human being,
Mm-hmm.
carrying something. You would think that that alone would be enough to be like, what just happened here?
Yeah.
Holy
Right.
cow. And instead, they focus on their law that they create. It blows my mind.
It should.
And I do think it's a threat. And I think it's one thing, this is kind of separate from the podcast and purpose of the podcast. But
Mm.
as we read through the Gospels, especially, recognizing the way that Jesus is a threat to the authority structure
Yeah.
is key.
Yeah.
And this is one of the ways that I think is super, super clear because he walks into this environment. And as you've discussed super well, he is a threat in these specific ways, far more than just providing healing for someone
Yeah.
who really needed it but didn't know how to get it.
Right.
So I love that. Okay, what these questions, and they're fantastic because I think they hit home for all of us. They hit home for me, for sure. So first, what are the things that I love to complain about? I got a few, and we will not go into details. What are the narratives that follow in order to feel noble or self righteous or smart? What absurdities and paganisms do I excuse in my life?
Ooh, that Crony Idolatry. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah.
Yeah.
What planks do I not recognize in
Yeah.
my eye? Well, I'm picking the speck out of somebody else's.
Yeah.
And man, spend some time thinking about that. That's a good one to journal on too.
Mm.
And also, like the rabbis with the Sabbath, I can ruin something intended to honor God and bless people. So how do I twist it into a means of proving my own worth?
Mm.
So the question is, where might we be doing that? What are my hypocritical crony idolatries?
Ooh, good job. Excellent. All right. So, excuse me. So we leave the passage, and we see Messiah, deliverance, crony idolatry, and Jared thinks, and it's we should be thinking, what are my crony idolatries? What are all the things that are just mismatched, syncretistic nastiness? The question I'm struck with is how he started the passage. Do you want to get well? So putting together the first two senses of place, the Messiah and the deliverance. I was talking to a friend about this, and he said, Wayne, I think despair is the most widespread disability of our age.
Mm.
I thought about that, and I said, that may be true. What have you thought about that? And he sent me a quote. I grabbed it here. This is from David Zoll. He's a preacher in Virginia. Don't know if David's with us, but if so, great job. David says this: the most acute spiritual condition of our day isn't pride or privilege or power or even self-righteousness. It's despair. This despair floats freely and exerts a pressure of its own, and I know of no more potent force, idea, reality when it comes to allaying true despair than the grace of God. It's the best thing there is. Grace lends life its poetry and preciousness and much of its levity. It is a reason to keep breathing and breathing deeply. Close quote. So I would just ask, are you struggling with despair? Some of us are out of work. Others are facing painful loss or painful illness. We've got people that we know that are in the raw, exposed conflict of family dysfunction or sin. In every age, there are many factors that bring despair without in any way minimizing that pain, because the Lord joins us in it. He says, do you want to get well? There is one who brings grace, the Messiah, Jesus. He is greater than all our fears. He is more powerful than all our sins. He is mightier than any loss. Jesus offers grace, the unearned, undeserved favor of God. And if we want to get well, we receive it. We walk in grace. And we hope that's what you'll do. Thanks for joining us. Good to be with you.
Amen. We hope that this has been a helpful time for you and that this is something that really does encourage you in your faith. And super glad that you have taken the time to join us in this. And we will come back together again and release another episode in just a couple weeks.
Sounds good.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.